Hello and welcome to We Turned Out Okay. This is one of our OkayCon 2020, the free virtual summit that I am doing. One of those recordings, and I'm really excited because I am here with a career counselor. Kathleen Sullivan of Lee Hecht Harrison is the name of the career counseling firm that Kathleen that you work with, and I'm really excited that you agreed to do this because I know we were recording during the coronavirus 2020 kind of pandemic. I think of it as a double pandemic of COVID-19 and also fear. And I think you are someone who has been instrumental in our lives in helping us come through this because you are you've been able to work with my husband, who listeners and viewers may know was laid off in January, and Kathleen has been Ben's career counselor and been super helpful for that. And just want to say thank you and welcome, Kathleen Sullivan.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I imagine that you are seeing an uptick in contacts or people trying to find a job. Is that true?
Well, I had already worked with people trying to find a job, but I think people have become much more serious about it and concerned about it. We have not, had hordes of more people. Now, I think over time that may be the case as some of the industries are beginning to lay off or temporarily lay off their employees. But, like as you're saying, you can't be driven by fear in this process. You can be driven by what you can control in the job search. And we are finding that employers are continuing to talk to people with the goal of, when things settle down and it's safe again, to really start to hire again.
Yeah. So we're in this place right now. For anyone who's watching a little bit later, and in the year or in the future, can you just share a little bit about, like, in the last week of March, first week of April 2020, what's happening right now, kind of in the job market in the U.S.?
Right. Well, I would say what's happening is a pause, and we have hundreds and hundreds of employers we worked with globally, and we have done a lot of very quick research and many phone calls to them in the last week just to get the pulse of what's happening. And what we're finding is most of them are not knee-jerk reaction laying people off necessarily. What they are doing is putting everything on hold.
Okay.
It is very difficult for the job seeker. Any job offers that were pending tend to have been frozen in place. They're not starting or orienting anyone because there's no one to do that or anyone available. People acclimated to a new job. In addition, what's happening, however, is companies are continuing to talk to people, to network, to interview, with the sense that, when this again resolves itself, they'll pick up where they left off. Now, what we haven't encountered yet are the people from the restaurants and some of the retail people who will be laid off and genuinely unemployed, at least for a while.
What are people asking you these days? Like, what are clients asking you? What are sort of the questions that you're getting most often, I guess?
Right. Well, should I keep looking? I think that's the biggest question. And I say to them, you want to be positioning yourself to be viable and engaged and connected to employers when they start to reintroduce the hiring process. So I am saying to them, if you're still just getting your resume together or you're just starting to think about researching companies, keep doing that. Don't fall behind the curve. What you can control is your own job search and moving that forward. So stopping looking is not a solution. It's just going to put you behind the 8 ball once people are back to work.
Stopping looking is not a solution. I really just like the way that you said that. I wonder if people can feel a fear that will just stop them. Do you encounter that?
I do. I think there is a lot of fear out there, and I'm sure the employers are experiencing it also, because in general, there was a very healthy hiring process going on, very low unemployment in most quarters. So I think there's fear on both sides, but I think it can be paralyzing. So I say to them, you can control moving yourself forward. You can continue to network. You can continue to apply to employers and accept interviews, maybe knowing you may not get the final decision for a month. But if you stop that process, you're just feeding that fear and really crippling, yourself and your job search, and really protracting it.
Mm-hmm. So say, one of our listeners or viewers has suffered some kind of a job loss, either for themselves or for their families, their spouse or partner.
Mhm.
Um, what could they be doing? Like, what's their first step?
Well, I think most people have to make the decision what they want to do next. I mean, for a lot of people, is to continue on in their role, in their industry, etc. If this is really a time in your career to pivot, or your industry is suffering, you may want to take that opportunity to make a career change. I think the best thing for people to do first, and they don't always do it first, but is to start to research. Research companies, research trends in industries, talk to people who are in industries and companies you might be interested in, and get some data to work with. And I think once you say to yourself, no, this is a good direction, you need to start to get your communication pieces together, which would be your resume, some of the social media like LinkedIn. You'll probably need a letter of introduction or a cover letter. So putting these pieces together, and companies have not shut down their application process. So, whether you have an employee referral or whether you have an ad you're answering, I would say continue to do that, because as I said, you'll be at the backside of the curve when things start to get up and running again. And I think once people start to identify a goal and support that with some research, I think starting to put their documents together and starting to network, they're going to start to feel better and let go of some of that fear, because they have an action plan.
Because now you're in the process, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're moving forward. And I would say that we have noticed exactly that, just with my husband trying to find what does the future look like for him? So he, and listeners will know this too, was at the same company for 23 years.
Right.
And we just got into almost a rut. And interestingly, the week before he was laid off, we had dinner with some friends, and one of those friends had a dear friend, our age, with kids the same age as our kids. Our kids are sort of teenagers, college students.
Yep.
And their friend woke up dead one morning, or didn't wake up one morning, is really. And what happened was it caused them, the friends that we were out for dinner with, to sort of think to themselves, okay, like, what do we want from life?
Right.
What do we
Right.
want? Looking around, what do we want? And so we, heard that and talked with them about that that evening. And then the next day, so every weekend, Ben and I take a walk. We go, we have a favorite place around us that we go. We haven't done it now for a few weeks because we're all in quarantine, but we will hopefully get back to it again as soon as possible. But we happened to take a walk the Sunday before he was laid off, and we agreed that we wanted to make a change too. You know what I mean? Like, life is too short.
Yep.
We agreed that we really wanted to live someplace rural near a university. And we thought, all right, we'll start putting this in motion. Ben says, I'm going to start getting my resume together. And at the time, I don't even think he really had a conception of what that meant. It had been 23 years we were in the same, same company. But we sort of identified this place, this step that we wanted to take. Now, I think without the layoff, that would not have, we would not have even thought about that. So then Wednesday comes, he gets laid off. He says to me, I felt the tension leaving my shoulders as I realized what this meeting was going to be about. And I just thought that's such a good, we started to look at it as the golden handcuffs are off kind of a thing. It was a great job, great company. And there was definitely a lot of fear. Like we would sort of have these moments where we'd look at each other like, oh my God, like it's all changing.
Yeah. How could this happen? Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think were really instrumental in kind of helping Ben to see the positives of this and how we could achieve our goals, and so just so everybody knows that plan is a little bit on hold for us right now because we're on a pause too. You had mentioned that employers are kind of on a pause. But it's been, I think as much as it can be, it's been very, I almost hesitate to use the word because it sounds so crazy, but it's been very positive. He's had a chance to step back and go, what do I want? I've had a chance to say, how can I contribute more to the sort of well-being, financial well-being of our family? And I think it's been really good because listeners to my show, and the coaching clients that I work with, I've really started to think like, what do you need? And it's definitely, the virtual summit is actually a part of that. Like I would never have done this except that I knew people needed this, right? People need us and our good ideas and positive energy. So like, it's funny because I think a layoff is looked at, and you probably see this a lot, Kathleen, as a thing to fear and a thing to dread. And what we have found is that we're just taking our steps forward and things are going to be okay,
Well, I think for a lot of people, as you said, the build up to it is a lot of fear. It's usually sort of discussed in a company. There's a lot of gossip around it, and then it happens, and all of a sudden it happens to you. I've been laid off twice, so I speak from experience. It's a good point to speak from because I certainly can empathize with people who go through that process. But I think once people get past that initial shock of being taken aback, it's an opportunity to sort of craft your career. I think for a lot of us, we get into a job or a career and we just keep rolling along either in the same place or from place to place in the same type of role. But when we have to really step back and create the next step in our career and make choices and look at things about what really motivates us and what do we want our work-life balance to look like, I think even though there's a little bit of pain in the process and the uncertainty and picking up some new skills you didn't have, but once you land somewhere new, it's somewhere you chose, somewhere you designed, somewhere you're really excited about. And I think if you were in the same situation, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really opens up opportunities. So we have a very dear friend who about a decade ago was laid off from a job. She had later told me that she used to cry herself to sleep every night while she was employed at this company. And when she got laid off, on the one hand, she was like, thank goodness. And on the other hand, she had a real short runway now. And she basically came up with two directives for herself. One was find work no matter what. And the other one was do not suffer fools. Like she was never again going to put herself into that position of being under a boss or in an organization that she just couldn't support or get behind. And when Ben was laid off, most of our friends and family were like, oh no, it'll be okay. We're here to help, right? Very supportive, wonderful, nothing against that. This friend wrote and she said, congratulations.
Free.
Yeah, she said, every time I've been laid off, I've made more money than in the previous job, first of all. And second of all, it's a great opportunity for you to kind of think about what you want. And that has definitely been the case. So.
Right, and I agree. It's an opportunity to choose. It's an opportunity to really design what you want. And what I find with most of my clients now that they get to choose, They don't just choose the career, but they're also choosing an organization or a culture or an environment they really want to be in
Mm-hmm.
that more aligns with their values or some special interest that they have. So that's a whole other level of career planning and management. If you stay in the same company or you just sort of go from job to job and you don't really think about it, that's a whole other dimension to this too.
It's true. It's true, and definitely something to think about. I'm also thinking about like my show is primarily the audience is primarily parents of young children. So we're talking about keep people with
Little,
preschoolers, with toddlers, with babies, and
yep,
many of them work full-time jobs, and up until a few years
sure.
ago, the kids were in daycare or school while the parents were both out
Yep.
working, and now everyone is at home.
Right,
Are
right,
are there
right.
any special recommendations that you might have for someone who's looking for a job in this kind of environment or that kind of position?
Working from home.
Yeah, like
Yes, I think that first of all, many companies have built a lot more flexibility into, into the workplace, into people's schedules, into trying to accommodate people with younger children, or I have a number of clients with elder care too. That's,
mm-hmm.
or some are doing both, frankly,
Yeah,
at
that
the
sandwich
same
generation.
time. Exactly. So I think a lot of companies, and they will put it right on the website, we offer some flexibility, we offer opportunities to work from home. Or then there's the people who really want to become remote workers, and those jobs are posted as remote jobs. And depending on what you prefer, I think there's a lot more accommodation these days, a lot more flexibility. Obviously, technology enables that to a great extent. So I think if people are looking to build in some flexibility in their schedule or location of where they work, it often is a benefit a company offers, or you can negotiate for that. So
Mhm.
I think it will certainly, I think eventually children will be back to daycare and the little ones will be back to school and all of that. But in the interim, I think everybody's home and learning to, manage short term. But I think once people get back to a more normal schedule, I think companies even more so will put more trust in their people now to work from home, and it may become an even bigger factor, I think, going forward.
Oh, I love that. It's funny because I had really been thinking about what would it be like for someone to physically look for a job, while they're at home and the kids aren't in daycare,
Right,
but they're at home
right,
as well.
right,
And I love what you did though was you took that and you turned it into what do you want?
right,
How can you
right.
find what you want
Yeah,
even in this kind of time? And I guess just as what I'm advising my clients to do, my coaching
yeah,
clients to do is to when you've got your 4-year-old in one room and you're in
right,
the other room, like
yeah,
to have
yeah.
frequent check-ins. I did a podcast episode, so just for everybody watching or listening, it was a few episodes ago, and it was WeTurnedOutOK.com/323, and I'm gonna link to that in our notes because I was asked by the people that I work most closely with. I have a coaching community called the Ninja Parenting Community, and in there they were basically like, okay, all these lists are coming at us, all kinds of, here's a great thing to do with kids, here's another thing to do with kids, but
Yeah.
they're not organized in a way that is helpful. What we need is something that's organized by how much adult input does this activity require,
Right,
which I thought was
right.
so incredibly smart. So I put together a whole list of like 30 plus things based on the amount of adult input. So some of those that
Right.
require very little adult input are things like, gosh, I'm not going to remember the super lightest ones. You know what? I'm going to just quickly go to my website and look that up because we have all this magic of technology, and this will
Yeah.
take, hopefully not very much time. Because I would love to be able to give you listening kind of a suggestion now about what you could do.
Mm.
Um, and I am right there. Okay, 32 ways to occupy stuck at home kids. Organize
Yeah.
by amount of adult input. So the things that require minimum adult input are things like, so one of my favorite ones is there's these products called bingo markers, which Kathleen, you may not know this, but a bingo marker is, it's a magic marker that a kid can hold.
Yep.
And it's got, instead of like, you can write like this, but the beauty of a bingo marker is you can go bang, 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 and it will make what look like little bingo dots.
Sure.
And so my thought was, we put the bingo markers and some paper in a box, and kids can pull it out as they want it, put it away when they want to be done with it. And another thing that we've had so much, with my own kids, we had a lot of fun with, but also I had a blast with as a teacher, was we would tape up pieces of paper or a poster, like, or something long, some sort of long poster board or whatever, under the table. So now the kid is under the table.
Yeah.
Such a blast. So that's something I think with little kids, they can't be not checked in on, several times an hour.
No.
But in the context of looking for a job, that's okay, right? Because what typically what people do as they're looking for a job isn't like, you don't spend 3 hours at the computer without getting up, right?
No, not at all. No. And I certainly think, I think when and I do have clients with little ones. I was actually doing a practice interview the other day, obviously via technology, and we were practicing, and she said, my little one's in the room. I think she must have given him the pots and pans, because that's what he was banging for like 45 minutes. And I said, for a real interview, I said, you probably don't want this musical accompaniment because it's not going to, but I think everyone's accommodating everybody now, right? But as far as managing your time, the people who go at this is, I have to do it 8 or 9 hours a day. I can't get away from my desk. I can't. No, I think variety is really important. Spending some of your time researching, spending some of your time, these days on the phone or via Skype or Zoom or whatever, talking to people, sometime developing your own materials, and really pacing yourself and taking good care of yourself, and having stretch breaks and exercise, and decent food that you're eating is really a whole part of this. You better to have 4 or 5 productive and healthy hours than 8 hours of nose to the grindstone. And a nice break with a child, or playing a game for half an hour, I think is really rewarding, and just gives you the energy to go back and look for a job.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that idea. So, another thing that maybe that client could do, or someone with little kids could do, is instead of pots and pans, bring out everybody has those covered containers, plastic containers, Chinese food containers. I recommend basically having a cabinet door that a kid can open of their own. They can crawl up to it and open it, so it's not got those little child protective things. And what's in there is nothing but plasticware of different shapes and sizes. They can build a castle. They can, you're banging things, but it's not going.
That's a great one. I'm going to speak to her next week. I'll pass that along.
Oh, cool. I hope that's helpful. Because I think that is a legitimate thing. Like, you can't have your toddler in another room while you're on a 45-minute interview either. So that's great.
Just an interesting point around that. I was talking to my godson a week ago, and he's home, and his 8-year-old's home. And as he said, a teenager might sit on a computer all day long, but an 8-year-old is not going to. No. Just in first grade now. So I had found online some of the museums now have little videos and stuff, like the Boston Science Museum, or the aquarium has penguins, and little things that you can give them that are educational, plus take their attention for half an hour. So I think there's resources out there for people to really leverage to help them with keeping the parents focused on whether it's work or job search, and allowing the child not, to be at loose ends like that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to link to those in the show notes, because that is very minimal input from parents, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's fun. They're fun. They're age appropriate. Yeah.
What thoughts do you have on what a parent might say to a child when they get laid off? Like, how could they help their kids feel safe, for example? How could they frame this for their kiddos?
You know, I do hope they will be candid with their child once they have a few days to sort it through. And, because whether it's a welcome change or an unwelcome change, you
Mhm.
have to digest it and come to terms a little bit with it. But I do think an honest conversation that, the parent has lost a job and going to be looking for one, and, that don't be worried about it. Don't be concerned about money. We're going to find it. I think that kind of positive messaging. And I think if the child sees the parent sort of excited about what they're doing and engaged,
Mm.
I think it's just, setting the tone for the child, not just now, but as you look at these children, their lives are going to be a series of job changes compared to, people now who've had long tenures. So as they see people adapting and coming to terms and being positive, I think that's important for a child. But trying to hide it or, sharing the fear, I don't think it's productive
Mm.
at all,
I love it. Sounds like you would want to try and frame it with your child like, we're on an adventure here. Like, here's an
Yeah,
adventure.
yeah, yeah, a
Um,
new exploration, and they are.
yep.
I always say to people, this is a journey, and you're going to explore a lot of things and try on some different things. And I think if you frame it to a child like that, I think they can understand it a lot
I
better.
love that. And I would add to leave room for questions. Like,
Yeah,
try not to give them so much. And this is just from my background as a child
sure.
development specialist,
Yeah.
a child development expert. Leaving room for questions instead of saying, instead of expecting or like guessing
Mm,
what they might want to know, because the younger the
right.
child, the less
Yeah.
they'll need to know. But their questions might be really all they need. Their questions will be all the reassurance that they need. Is if you can
Yeah.
directly answer, how will we pay for our food or something like that. I don't know what
Right.
questions your
Right.
child might ask, but if you can answer that question directly,
Right.
and just always with the message, we're gonna stay safe, and we're going on an adventure together. This is a new
Yeah.
adventure for mama.
Yeah.
And for our
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's funny when we had been talking over email, you had mentioned, you had asked, should we talk about LinkedIn?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved this because I think maybe a lot of listeners, or probably a lot of listeners and
Yeah.
viewers, have a great sense of what LinkedIn is and how to use it. And I think
Yeah.
people that, like me, are a little bit more like, it's frightening to me.
Right.
So can you share
Right.
a little bit about LinkedIn?
No, I'm happy to. And in general, I'm not someone who uses social media to a huge extent, but LinkedIn is what I would call a networking and relationship building and career building site for adults, generally professionals. You don't see many people younger than 20, and it's not age specific, but you got to have a couple years into your career. So
Mhm.
allows you, for those of you who aren't aware, to set up like an online profile similar to a resume. It encourages you to connect with other people you already know professionally. It isn't like Facebook, so it shouldn't be, you and your dog connecting to your child and having discussions about the family cookout. Nothing wrong with connecting to your family, but it should be the conversations, etc., should be professional. So you can communicate with the people you're connected with. You automatically, by extension, have a connection to their connections, so a nice network is being built for you. There's also groups on LinkedIn that you can join. They can be around industry, they can be around a profession, they can be around a methodology like project management or coaching, they can be around technology. There's all sorts of professional groups or alumni groups that you can join. And now you're connected to literally tens of thousands of people. And in these groups and even individually, you're sharing insights and tips and articles and trends. And I say to people, if you're researching a new career or you've been somewhere a long time, or you're a little introverted and you don't go schmooze at professional events, this is a fabulous way to make connections and learn to get your voice heard, to have a presence. But I think it's a powerful tool. And there's also, as you can imagine, a jobs feature. A lot of companies post their job openings on LinkedIn, and you can set up a search feature. Also, company recruiters have software, and they go out and look for people associated with what you do and your skill sets, and they will reach out to you with opportunities too. So I think in this day and age, if you ignore LinkedIn, you're going to miss out on a number of opportunities. Even if someone doesn't recruit you that way, you certainly are missing out the opportunity to share information, stay ahead of the trends, get support, insights, etc.
Huh. It feels like a place with a lot of good possibilities.
Yeah, yeah.
It also feels a little daunting. Like I think about the idea, for example, of jumping into a group with 10,000 people.
Right,
are,
right,
are all
right.
those 10 are all those 10,000 people on there together? Like, is
Well,
it
they're not all looking at you like with their little eyes at this time. People speak up as they're having conversations, okay, or they're sharing information. You can jump in, or you can stay out of the conversation. Okay?
Mhm.
Name is listed in
Serve.
the
You can,
yes,
probably lurk, kind of.
yes, yeah. I don't encourage lurking. I encourage participating, but I think you can sit back and learn. But I also think it helps you get your voice in the room. So say, for example, I'm reading 9 tips on how to write a resume, and all of a sudden I say, oh, I know another good thing. I've seen people do it. So I might add a comment saying, those 9 tips are wonderful. Here's one more I've seen people use, and I think it can be helpful.
Hmm.
A great way to really support each other, to share information. I say start small. Don't try and jump in there and run the group, but comment, share information. And I think it's really good for us to be visible these days in a job search. So
Hmm.
nice, safe forum to do it. Because in your group, there's people just like you, and they're there to help. So I think it's having a nice, great, big support team that you probably wouldn't have otherwise.
Cool. It sounds like there's a place there for curiosity. I mean, is that
Yeah. Well, I encourage people who, let's say, is a nurse and for whatever, say physically they can't be a nurse anymore, but they want to go into insurance, a related industry, etc.
Mhm.
Join groups for insurance, and they will learn about what the jobs are, what skill sets you need. They'll meet people from different companies and get to talk to them about different possibilities. So I think it's almost like a professional meeting online, with a lot broader audience than you could possibly have if you go locally. And I especially think for career changers, it's a great place to meet a new tribe of people to support you and learn about that profession.
Oh, I love this. So, in 2007, we became homeschoolers. We had a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time, and I mean, this was sort of, it feels like the very dawn of technology. It was a
Yep.
little bit more advanced than that, but um, we when I first started, I didn't. The only people I knew who homeschooled were there was my best friend, as it turns out, like we
Yeah.
were each other's maid of honor. They happened to homeschool. That's how
Yeah.
we, learned about it, and some friends down the street. And um, after we decided to start homeschooling, and I learned there's just this neat little network of homeschoolers in our area, for example. And we used to do these things called listservs that you probably remember. Listservs,
Remember? No, I remember them. Yeah.
yep. So like Yahoo email groups or whatever.
Yep.
And once I realized that there was this sort of wider network, I guess I'm thinking about it now because it's really reminding me of these groups where like
Yep.
you we started off sort of feeling like we're the only people in the universe who do this.
Right.
Like we know 2 other families that do this. And then we found that there's not only is there a whole network of people asking questions and sharing curriculum ideas, but they
Yeah.
meet at the park on Fridays, and we could do
Yeah.
it too. And
Yeah.
it's really, I guess talking with you is really making me feel like LinkedIn is a much more sort of positive place than I had thought it was. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great way for someone to sort of, break out of a company, break into a new profession, build out connections. Some are transactional, some become very deep, learn from thought leaders, stay on top of things. I know myself, I like to practice what I preach, as we all are supposed to. So I try to get to one professional meeting a month and read one professional journal. Well, on LinkedIn, so much of this is going on. And if I look through my group conversation every day, I'm picking up things 10 times faster than if I went to these discrete events or read one journal. So it really keeps me involved and connected and enthusiastic about what I do. And I think that's what it can serve for most people, in addition to the job function and etc. There's a lot of power to it.
Wow, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you're making me think about like who haven't I yet met? What kind of groups could I join as a
Right.
podcaster, as an educator?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
that's really, I've
Yeah.
never thought of it this way. So thank you so much. Even just for that little, for me, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think it's so good for everybody watching and listening to kind of hear that it's such a positive place.
It is. It is.
How could a listener or a viewer kind of put their best foot forward on LinkedIn? Is there anything you can recommend in terms of their profile, or, I mean,
Right. Well, I think a profile, you have to think of 2 things. Companies use software to read them. So I think they have to, to find talent, to hire people for jobs. So you want to be current on the terminology and the skill sets you put out there, but also people read them. There's 2 things. There's technology reading your profile and people reading your profile. So I think LinkedIn is a little bit more accessible and conversational than a resume. So I think that's a framework to have in mind. I think when you're on these groups, I always think of it as contributing and helping, not think of it as trying to show off and get, you know what I mean? Building a relationship, helping someone else, becoming better informed yourself rather than trying to hog the spotlight.
yeah.
I think those people really thrive on LinkedIn. And I think you become better informed, even if you're quiet at first and it takes a little while to get the courage to comment. I remember the first time I hit that button, it said 10,000 people going to read my comment, but people had such positive things to say about it. It is not a negative or snarky place, which is good.
That is good to know.
Yeah, it builds people's courage, I think.
Yeah, because you can feel like, I mean, there are so many places. YouTube is a place we talk about a lot on this show, where I say to coaching clients and to everybody that I can talk to, if you have a child like 8, 9 years or under, they are never watching YouTube without you in the room, because you never know what they're actually going to see. And but at the same time, I love YouTube. I use it a lot, right? So it's very reassuring to know that that LinkedIn is a positive place. It also makes me think of when I first started. So for 4 years now, I have been a live storyteller, and I would get up and do like a Moth style competition, for example. If you're familiar with the Moth radio.
Yeah, I do.
And I actually won. I loved bragging about this. I won the very first storytelling competition I ever entered.
Congratulations. Good for you.
It was partly a good story, but it was also, but the reason I bring it up now is because when I went, I had no idea what to expect. It was at Trident Booksellers in Boston, which is such a fun place anyway. And the people in the organization who were like, going to be drawing names from the hat, they were like, you are going to love this. People are so supportive of the storytellers. And that was exactly how I felt. Like, it's like you're getting out of your comfort zone, definitely. But if you can do that and you know, it sounds like if you do that, you can expect a positive, welcoming response,
Yep.
provided you, as you say, don't hog the spotlight and try to be a giving of your, you know, best ideas or
Knowledge.
thoughts
Mhm.
or whatever. I love that. To me, it's, I guess, just to kind of wrap up this conversation as we're coming to the end here, it sounds like we in our little family have discovered that losing your job, far from being the end of the world, is the beginning of a whole kind of new adventure.
Yeah. I find most people, even though at the time they're frustrated and they're concerned and they, you know, they don't know how it's all going to turn out. As they look back, they say it opened doors for me. It made me, you know, really bring forward skills I hadn't used in a long time. It really was rewarding because now I have chosen where I want to be now in the environment I want to be in. And very few people do I say look back with regret because
Mm.
sort of become the stewards of their own fate and chosen versus saying, you know, I'm sacrificing my professional rewards just to have some security. Once that
Yeah.
is gone, people forge ahead generally.
Wow, I love that. Again, it makes me think of our friend who was laid off and said, "Congratulations." She
Yeah,
later told me, she said, I'm driving the reins of I am holding the reins of my stagecoach. Like, I'm
yep,
the pilot of this plane, and
yep,
I'm no longer just sort of at somebody else's whim or
yep,
whatever." It's like,
mercy, yeah, yeah.
well, I mean, Kathleen Sullivan of, wait a minute, I'm going to get the name of it. Kathleen Sullivan of Lee Hecht
Yep,
Harrison.
yes.
Actually, what is the website? Is it leehechtharrison.com?
Yep, it's that simple. It's a global company. You know, we're there to help people with career transition or advancement, or leadership development. And you'll see a lot of us just chitting and chatting on LinkedIn and sharing our ideas. We're out there. You know, especially now, I think we can give of what we know to help some other people along and sort of help them feel there's resources and support. So,
Oh, I love that. I almost didn't know what to expect coming into this conversation because I'm not currently looking for a job. And I just think that I just want to say thank you because I think this has been really useful. I mean, I've even found things that it's been useful for me. But I think anyone out there who is sort of experiencing a job loss and trying to figure out where to go next, I really hope this has been a helpful conversation. So.
well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. All right. I like to finish every show with, first of all, a thank you to you watching and listening. A huge thank you for that. And a very special thanks to our producer, the man who is in the middle of his own job search. We've had such powerful and positive experiences because of Kathleen and because of Lee Hecht Harrison. He is the 22-time winner of the Husband of the Year award. He is our producer. He's the voice you hear at the top of the show. He's Benjamin Culp. And if he's listening right now, I just want to say, Ben, how grateful and thankful I am for you. And lastly, thank you again so much for listening and for watching. We will see you next time. Bye.